Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 has been making you feel.
Sick.
Is that helping or hurting?
That game... So we talked about it last week, mere hours before the game was released.
Yes, as of this time last week, we had not... Well, nobody in our line of work got a copy of it early.
Yeah. There were people. I had someone who represented the game tell me. We talked about some people on Twitch that were playing it. I had someone tell me that Activision had not sent out copies to those people either. They had just found it at mom and pop sellers.
Oh, really?
And just found places that had broken street.
Well, that's good to know.
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's always hard to know. If that's the case or not. But that's what I was told. So yeah. So I ended up pre-ordering a copy because they ended up sending codes out to it like midday on Tuesday for reviewers and such. So, the game unlocked on Monday night. So I'm like, well, let's get into this thing. I need to know. It's a horrible, horrible game. Mm-hmm. It is astoundingly bad.
All right.
In just about every way that a like classic, meaning like, kind of based off the Neversoft trick system and blueprint. In every way that a Tony Hawk game of that blueprint could be bad, this one is. From a technical perspective, from the design choices they made, the changes they made to the gameplay, like every step of the way, it's bad.
How's the frame rate?
It's bad.
Damn it! I was trying to find something.
Yeah, it's not. It is all over the place.
Man.
You escape by one of those voodoo things, and the second level it just goes to shit.
Rate. Like just certain levels, just as you're turning, it's just you're watching the frame rate just chug.
On user stuff for sure.
And then on the user created parts, everything about the game that is buggy is like multiplied by a factor of like 2 to 3 when you go into a user created skate park. Because then you'll have just like, this ramp that someone placed down is now flickering in and out of existence. And, when I wreck, I'm falling through things and just, all sorts of really messed up stuff like that.
What's funny is that was the first time that I had tried streaming at 60 frames per second to YouTube. And I'm like, oh, shit. This is not the best example. But
why bother?
So they made some changes to the trick system. That I think are not great ideas. They also reduced the trick system by a great deal.
Just in complexity?
Yeah. In terms of options and stuff that you would have. By the time they got going and with that trick system, it was at a point where when you landed on a rail and go into a grind, you could kind of tap buttons and transition immediately into different grinds. And they also had flatland tricks that work the same way. You can do a manual. It's like you pop a wheelie and you use that to kind of link your combos together.
It's like the pogo stuff, right?
You could tap things there to do pogos and dark, just like flip the board around while you're just kind of in a flatland scenario. All that's gone. None of that is in there.
That seems like something you would need.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need it because you can still do a regular manual.
Right.
So you can still link tricks from one object to the next, which is the original purpose of the manual. But it means that when you're on your way from one thing to the next, there's nothing to do. When you're doing a long grind, there's nothing to do other than just kind of stick it out or, flip off the rail, do a trick, land back on it, all that sort of stuff. They made the wall rides automatic, and they added so when if you jump at a wall, you'll automatically wall ride. You used to kind of hit the grind button near a wall. So it was like a physical thing you had to do.
Like some degree of skill involved.
Yeah, and I think they probably, in conjunction with changing that, they also added a slam functionality where when you hit the grind button while you're in the air, you kind of slam your feet down and try to land as quickly as possible. Kind of a fast drop sort of thing. Which didn't necessarily need to be done that way. I mean, there are other options for how that could have been controlled, and you could still have manual wall rides or regular wall rides. And all that sort of stuff. Like those are just some strange changes. Like the slam, I think is, I don't necessarily like it, but it's not the end of the world. It's more than just like the reduced complexity. The special trick system has been changed into like a stock style system where you fill up a meter, then you pop it, and then you do normal tricks, but they come out as super tricks while you're in this super state. I think that totally sucks. I think it's just it's a not as it feels like restrictive in the way that you do it. And then you get to the levels. A lot of the levels look and feel like they were designed using the in-game tools. Like there's no flavor to them. Yeah. They all feel empty and totally lifeless.
Are they all original? Do they bring any are there even like classic maps from old Tony Hawk that people would want to see?
There absolutely are. Yeah. There is one level that is mapped after a classic Tony Hawk map. They call it the bunker in this one. and it's they added some additional areas to it and stuff like that, and it only kind of underscores like that this is a subpar product, because then you're like, oh man, I remember this level. This is not fun at all. Like, man, what happened? Like, this level used to be great fun, and now it's just like, well, nothing they're asking me to do here is interesting in any way. You think about Tony Hawk, you think about, it's like the levels had goals that you'd have to complete to move on. You'd have to complete X number of goals and find the secret tape and all the spellscape.
Yeah, it wasn't just high score from tricks, right?
Yeah, but there would be the standard goals that would be applied to every level. Like, there'd be 3 score tiers. There'd be, maybe like a combo goal. You'd spell skate. You'd find the secret tape. And then the rest of the goals would be kind of custom designed to fit that level.
Be like the bell on the school or whatever,
right, yeah.
Or jump over the bums on the beach level, stuff like that.
Yeah, so in this one, it's like, it's the same, like they basically came up with the same list of goals and applied it to just about every single level. You find some slight tweaks on it, but like, in one of them, in the first level, there's like, hey, the pool is filled with beach balls. You need to knock them all out of the pool as quickly as possible to win. And then 2 levels later, like the twist on it is, there's a bunch of barrels of toxic waste positioned around this pool, and you need to knock them into the pool to succeed.
There's a lot of pools in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you're skating.
Yeah, okay, yes, all right, fair.
They have things where you have to like collect things and pick stuff up. But instead of it being like, hey, there's 5 things scattered around the level for you to find in this 2-minute run, instead it's like, get them as quickly as possible. By the way, there's 50 of them, and they're all right here. So you're just like, I'm going to like grind around this lip, and that's 24 of them, and then I'll, jump up to this upper lip and grind around, and there's the rest. They have a goal where you have to kind of skate through rings in a set order, but they only show the next ring. So you don't see where you have to go after going through that ring until you're through that ring. So anytime there's any sort of like, I had to jump up there, it becomes like a trial and error thing of like, gross. Okay, well, I didn't know that I needed to jump there, so I need to restart. And that's where it breaks in an even deeper, more meta way. One of the key things about Tony Hawk that I think really like helped make it successful was that you could very quickly restart your run. By just pausing, hitting retry, and going. Like, the load times were minimal if they existed at all. You were back in immediately.
And this is across, like, the whole series?
More or less, yeah.
It was very much that Meat Boy thing. Like, I died,
right.
Or, I'm not getting a good score here. Like, restart. Immediately back into it.
Let's get
or
this
like,
again.
Like a Call of Duty respawn. Just hit X, back in it. Like, it's not waiting.
So, in this game, to do that, so if let's say you start a goal, like let's say you're like skating around to hit a bunch of lunch boxes, or you're skating through these rings, and then you jump and go, it was up on this girder. I had no way of knowing that. I need to restart, and I'll know to jump up to that girder next time. You hit start, you push down like 4 times, get to retry. You hit retry, then you have to hit X to say yes. Then it sits there for a couple seconds, then loads, then gets back into a screen. Then that shows you the goal again. You have to wait for a little circle to fill around the button before you can press the button, and then there's a 3, 2, 1 countdown before you're back in it.
But then it usually loads you in at like the default starting point of that lobby area, and so if the actual goal is like the top of a ramp, it loads like the starting area, and before the 3, 2, 1 and stuff,
if
brings
you
you back
from mid goal, it doesn't do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It'll bring you right in. But like,
okay.
So it completely changed, or maybe you would say broken the flow.
They've completely broken the flow of
how these games
playing
work.
this game.
Man,
it's beyond that. It's stuff like you can't change levels without quitting all the way back out to the main menu and then going back in and selecting another level,
or put your skill points anywhere.
Yeah, or like to go to like you earn skill points as you play that will make you a better grinder, a bit higher jump, more speed. And to spend those points, you have to go all the way back out to the main menu to spend the points. And then like that whole process is like layers deep in a really insane way. So yeah, like the flow, I mean, it's like, it sounds weird, like people will think that sounds like nitpicking if they're not familiar with it, but this is actually like a key crucial thing for the franchise. Like Meat Boy is a perfect example. Like, imagine Meat Boy if like the retry wasn't instantaneous. You wouldn't
be terrible.
Yeah, you wouldn't go back to it.
No.
So this game has another additional layer to that, where like when you pick a level, it loads you into a lobby. It loads you into the level that you chose, but like with other skaters there. It's like this online, supposed to be social thing. And you can turn on voice chat there if you like and stuff. But you don't really do anything with those players. You don't really interact with them. So when you go to start a goal, like you call up the mission list, you find a goal, you select it, you hit go, it actually loads you out of that game into an empty version of that world where you can take on the goal.
Right.
And at the end dumps you back into sometimes a completely different game. It's not like it's like, oh, you're still in this same multiplayer lobby with these same players. Like the lobby doesn't exist for any good reason.
The little bit I caught of you guys streaming it came out, like there's not even player collision, right? Like,
no,
you can't even interact with the other characters.
It'll pop up and say that you hit the other player.
Yeah,
that used to be a little more explicit and used to look like something in the previous game.
You just sail right through them, right?
Because there used to be the concept of like online free skate, and you're like, whatever, man, we're just gonna hang out and skate and talk, and you can kind of do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no like all the players are kind of glitching out and doing stuff. You're not really seeing them skating. You're not like sitting there and watching them go.
Speaking of glitching. Felt like there were a lot of GIFs coming out of this thing on release day.
Yeah, there's you're falling through the world.
Yeah.
You're getting stuck in walls.
Was any of that stuff like glitchy in a fun way, the way that like Skate 3 got?
No,
with the physics bugging out and stuff, or is it just
not really,
is it just annoying?
I have a recurring glitch to where, when you're skating around the free skate area, there's lots of little markers like, oh, here's where this objective starts or whatever. And I'll skate up to it. It says hold square to start stupid ice cream thing or whatever. And I will hold it and it doesn't work. And it will do that. Like you've seen it plenty, Jeff.
That's happened to me as well.
Yeah. And I'll have to totally exit the game.
You can just call up a mission list at any point and start the goals from there. So, like, even just the idea of having the goals around the world for you to skate up and start, like, they don't even need to be there.
Right. But if you wanted to use that, you just sometimes can't.
They took out some of the key multiplayer modes, like horse and stuff like that.
Graffiti.
Graffiti's not in there. And the levels just, I think, like, the thing that underscores it for me is the levels just have no character. Like, the goals are not tuned to the levels in a way that, like, makes them feel unique or interesting. Like, a lot of them feel like they were just made from the prefab parts that are available in the editor. And that's probably the worst part about it is that, like, you clean up the technical aspects of this thing. Like, like, oh, well, hey, the frame rate's good. And, we quick tightened up the load times or something like that. Like, though, as designed, it's still a really terrible game.
Yeah, like that rooftops level I think we both got to. It's just...
That thing is just...
sucks.
It's a terrible, terrible level.
Yep.
Like all the levels leading up to it are bad. I feel like every level I got to in that game was progressively worse.
Yeah.
At least the one after the rooftops is that remake, and you're like, oh, well, there's some familiarity here at least. I can go like, oh, man.
But then that just gives you a point of comparison.
Totally. Then it's just like, wow, it feels like a jittery fucking mess compared to, like, actually playing this level in one of the previous games. Like, it's fucking crazy that thing came out.
All the like funny Easter eggs and stuff that used to be in those games, like, oh, I grinded across this propeller and then this wall came down and there's this whole area out here. Oh, there's this helicopter flying. Like,
so
I haven't really noticed any like holy
level,
shit.
The bunker has a helicopter in it. You can grind on it and then it makes an explode. There's like an explosion noise that is constantly happening on that level. And I think I caught like what appeared to be a missile launched out of the helicopter, but it didn't seem like that did anything. Like there are gates, there are like boarded up areas in that level, but you can just skate right through them and it breaks them down. It's not like you don't need to grind the helicopter to open up an area. You can just skate over there and jump through. So it's just this explosion noise that happens like on a timer or something. I'm like, what the fuck is even going on?
It's a bummer. Now these guys have done other like Tony Hawk games.
Other terrible Tony Hawk games.
Well, they did. Right. They've done all of them.
They've done.
Since,
they did HD
since they tried to since they started trying to bring the series back.
Yeah,
right?
well,
like
they did Ride, they did Shred, they did Tony Hawk HD.
Yeah, which they were all varying shades of bad.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Ride and Shred are different things. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
but HD,
those are not great games.
HD was disappointing, at least. I mean, by not nailing the feel of those original games, it throws everything off. Because you have to be like dead on with that stuff.
Right. But like Ride and Shred are such different things. Like those are kids games meant to meant for the era when everyone was buying plastic things to go with their video.
They just wanted to sell plastic goods.
Such a different thing that like that was bad, but for totally different reasons.
Right.
So
you just never expected that to be good.
Whereas, or I mean, I don't know. Like that was a game where I tried Ride at E3 and it actually all worked. And I was like, okay. I mean, this is a very simple like game compared to what they had done in the previous Tony Hawk games. But it's going for its own thing, and the board seems to work. And then we got it in, and it just didn't work for shit.
Yeah.
It was just like, well, I don't know what happened between there and here, but like, man, this thing's a mess. So yeah, I don't know.
What's the guest skater situation?
Lil Wayne
That's it.
and the King from King's Quest.
What?
Wait, really?
Yes,
Like
the
new one?
reboot, the new
Oh, the
King's
new one?
Quest. Yeah,
Okay.
is in there.
I don't know. You can't prove it's Lil Wayne. He doesn't have a name font for some reason.
That's true. For
when
some
you're
reason, there's no name next to him.
Yeah, when you select your skater, everyone else it'll be like Tony or Izzy or whatever their names are, and then it's just a picture of Lil Wayne with no indication, like no name at all.
Like,
yeah,
oh,
he's the only one on the whole.
When you go
character
into like the costume stuff, it says Lil Wayne.
right, but character
Oh, okay.
select.
I thought I saw people saying that Kanye was involved somehow, or was that?
I don't
Maybe
think
not.
that's the case.
I haven't heard anything about that.
You know, that
Maybe
would,
not.
That would be disappointing. On top of that,
No Darth Maul.
no,
no
Spider-Man.
Wolverine.
no, but you know, like the creative skater stuff has been reduced greatly compared to previous games.
Hang on a minute. Is Tony Hawk in it?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, Tony Hawk is in
Just
it.
wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah, Tony Hawk's son is in it.
Huh?
You know, it's got like the list of skaters you look at and go like, okay, you know, for modern skating, this makes
Hang
some
on.
sense. You're probably not gonna be able to do this.
Bob
Burnquist is not in the
Burnquist.
game. I'm
No?
sorry, I was
Okay.
disappointed as well.
It's the only name I can think
Yeah.
of.
Wee Man.
No, Wee Man is not in there as either. Yeah, just top to bottom, it is a real wreck.
Man.
Like, and it's full price. You know,
That's
this
so
is like a
that might-
$60
it's
product.
Like my first question is, would anything about this be more acceptable if it was like a $20 game, or is it just bad
it's
at
a
any
bad
price?
game. It's bad at any price.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
you know, you're gonna feel a little bit better. Like you know, it'll set the expectation at the $20 price where you'll be like, all right, well, it makes sense that this budget Tony Hawk game was kind of a pile of garbage.
Right. But it's not like it's like decent but bare bones. It's just
No, it's
just
bare
not-
bones and poorly executed.
Yeah.
And full of a bunch of problems,
Man.
and yeah, it's really something else.
that's a shame.
It's astounding in a way. Like you
Yeah.
look at it and you're like, man, like how did this happen? How did this thing get made? You know,
Well,
like-
then you start seeing people going back and pulling old news stories about Tony Hawk's contract with Activision running out this year.
right. So that was the
And then
thing.
you're like,
I'd been
oh.
wondering about that for a while, and yes, sure enough, if you go back and find the old press release from years and years and years ago when they extended it out to 2015.
So in that case,
You could start to paint a lot of conspiracy
Yes.
theories that you know, or half stories that we don't really know.
yeah, obviously we'll never know what the full terms of that stuff were. I mean,
But if you'd like to speculate for a while,
yeah, well, it seems like the easiest conclusion would just be like, hey, they were contractually obligated to make one more game, and here it is.
yeah, that's
And they made it as cheaply as they could.
that's my guess.
Like, okay,
and it needed to be a full priced retail product,
Yes.
per the terms of the contract, or you know, or something like that. And you know, maybe the developer got like zero money to make it.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I saw saw theories being floated out there about like, you know, they were intentionally salting the earth for whoever might end up with the license next or whatever.
That's a juicier and more fun conspiracy
sure.
theory of like, hey, you know, like because if you think about it, like if Activision's going to let the Tony Hawk contract expire, someone else is going to come in and go like, we think we could make money with Tony Hawk,
Right.
Like Tony Hawk is still Tony Hawk.
yeah. It's a name with legs,
Yeah, long legs.
muscular.
So, you know, someone would come in, you know, there are plenty of skateboarding games on iOS that, you know, come out with no branding or anything, you know, or they pull in real brands and stuff like that would love to do a deal with Tony Hawk. This does, I think, put, you know, this diminishes, I think, Tony Hawk's ability to get out there and you know, hawk a new video game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice one. Yeah, you're probably not wrong. But to what end? Like,
I don't know. Like, you know, I look at this stuff and go like, man, is there like a lawsuit here? Like if you could prove that someone acted in bad faith on
Right.
some end of this contract and they deliberately under budgeted the game or you know, or whatever, like you could probably, you know, Tony Hawk at some point could go like, hey, wait a minute. You totally fucked me.
you guys did me rotten.
But who knows?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's just one of the numerous things you could speculate about with regards to this fucking mess.
Sure.
It's sad. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't know that I went into this thing thinking like, oh man, Tony Hawk's going to be back and better than ever or anything like that. And
I mean, it seemed like we were at least primed for this eventuality. You know, like the more and more you heard about the game and the fact that they weren't marketing it at all.
I
and,
remained
like,
hopeful, but
Yeah,
all
sure.
signs pointed to it being
Yeah.
to it being lackluster, but not like this.
Yeah.
like never like this. Holy shit!
I was watching you guys live stream and just seeing the tweets and stuff last week, and I was like, man, it's going to be a full week before we can podcast about this. I wonder if the rage is like the white hot rage is going to continue burning until then. And
because we were
glad to
hopeful
hear it
last time.
has.
I kind of get so I have had trouble. Like I wanted to review it, and I still will. Like I'm starting to write it now, and like I got to a point where I couldn't play any more of it. It was just so bad.
It just like breaks your heart too much.
Yeah, it's just like I'm banging your head against these bullshit goals, and it's like the game doesn't even tell you when you've unlocked the next level, except that it triggers a trophy unlock.
Yeah.
What?
Like it doesn't come up and say, "Hey, you've unlocked the next level." You just need to know that like as soon as you get 15 stars in a level, which doesn't seem to include the free skate objectives,
right?
Even though those have stars under them on the mission list, those stars apparently don't count.
Even though they look exactly the same.
They look exactly the same
on
as
the
other
same
stars.
screen. Yeah. I told myself I was going to brute force my way through it because I've played all those games, one of my favorite franchises, and even though I wasn't liking it after the first hour or two, I was like, it's a Tony Hawk game, it's probably the last one, I need to beat it, and I got at that rooftop level, and yeah, there's a few of those bullshit objectives, and it's like, nah, I don't think this is worth it, even if it's just like 2 more hours and I could see all the levels, like, I don't see the point in playing this game anymore.
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I, you know, kind of kept going back to it. Like my mind was more or less made up. You know, kind of saw what the game had to offer. I still have not seen every level in the game, but I kind of kept banging my head against it, thinking like, you know, let's see one more level, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and to the point where like I'd play it for like 10 minutes and just get so fucking just like pissed and disenfranchised and just like fuck this, and I would just turn it off and like literally fucking play Destiny.
Say no more.
Actually, I think I did the exact same thing.
I mean, it's, you know, it's a special kind of bitterness to be that let down by something that you really wanted to be good or to like, you know?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Like, it's something you didn't have any expectations for, whatever, but it's something that's been this close to your heart for that long, and to have it blow up like this.
Well, you know, I spent some time thinking about it, and, you know, if you take the other games out, you know, when they tried to do different things, if you look at the core of the Tony Hawk franchise, Pro Skater, Thug, the games that count, the Neversoft games, this is the first bad one of those. Like the games that came before, you know, like as it got longer in the tooth, like, American Wasteland and Project 8 and Proving Ground, like people just got tired of the formula, and the formula didn't change enough year to year to kind of justify it kind of continuing to come out, and so it was just diminishing returns year in and year out. But those games were still like good at the core, like they still worked. The ideas weren't always like they nail the trick and that sort of stuff. Like it wasn't always great,
right? But the feel was still there.
Yeah,
right.
Project Data I liked a lot, actually.
Yeah, the things that brought you to those games originally were still intact.
And I wouldn't even say that's on Neversoft, you know? It's just like, who could iterate on a franchise that many times in that short a time?
Totally. I mean,
and
they
come up with new stuff
absolutely.
every year.
That was a situation where, you know, with that and like even Guitar Hero to a certain extent, you know, later on, you'd be like, you know, like Tony Hawk was the first one to feel like, man, if they would just give these guys a year off.
Right.
And talking to people on the team, they'd be like, yeah, if we had an extra year to do this, man, we would overhaul so much shit. But we're under the gun all the time, you know, and we have to keep moving.
Yep.
Well, those first entries kept adding things that made a lot of sense. Like 2 added the manual, which just opened things up to a crazy degree. And then with 3, with the revert, you know, just mechanically, it was possible to string all your combos together forever.
Those are exponential changes to that franchise, those early games, you know? And by the end of 3, they had kind of completed it, and just by its very nature, you know, they're going to kind of slow down on those sorts of things.
Yeah, and then the big changes became more the way the game was structured. Like 4 was kind of the more open levels, and you could kind of pick and choose things. It wasn't always the 2-minute runs.
Right.
And then by like Thug and you know, they were going for more open world type stuff, like especially I think American, I always
Wasteland.
forget. Wasteland was the Skateland was the DS one.
Portable one. Or
okay,
whatever, yeah.
Wasteland, the big thing was just like all the stages are connected, but it was always just like a big aqueduct or something you'd go through while it loaded.
Right.
But you know, it was structural
like
changes they made. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, mechanically, I mean, the series had pretty much everything it needed in 3, except for maybe where the spine transfers 4.
Yeah, they made the spine transfers more of a system in 4, and hip transfers and stuff like that. And then
past that, all the stuff they tried to add.
Yeah, well, you can get off the board. Like,
And then the like slow-mo stuff where it's like jump and then do a bunch of like NBA Street type flip forward things before you land it.
Like that stuff was neat once you got into it, but it wasn't. None of it was vital.
And nothing was on the level of like the manual or the revert. Like those were the 2 big ones, and it made it feel like a totally new experience.
You know, when they got to that point where they're like, oh, there are 3 different career paths, and one of them is the rigging one, and Mike V is going to show up and show you how to fucking move a ramp in front of this car so you can jump over it. And like, all right, you brought the Creative Park stuff into the campaign. I don't mess with the Creative Park stuff for a reason, so it's kind of a bummer that it's in here.
That was Proving Grounds, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I remember not being big on that one.
Yeah, it might have been Project. Anyway.
No, Project 8 was kind of open world thing. Like that had the slow-mo stuff, I remember.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had the cool things, the objectives, like you'd be going down a street, and there would just be like a line on the street. It's like, oh, hey, that's a manual line. So as you're just going from objective to objective, it's like, oh, I'm going to try to set a record on a long manual down the street. Like, I thought that one was awesome.
Yeah, like they found some things along the way for sure. This game is bad. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 is a bad fucking game.
That sounds pretty definitive.
Like, man,
is there any circumstance whatsoever under which you would recommend somebody play this game?
I don't even think it's like bad in a way that's like interesting.
Right.
Like, it's not bad in a way where you go like, man, you got to see this. You need to see it for yourself. Like, no, it's
just tedious.
It's just tedious.
Yeah.
Like the choices they made were bad ones. The execution is poor. Like everything surrounding the game is kind of half baked. Like it's a bad product.
Man.
I'm sure you'll see it discounted like 15 at some point in the next year.
Yeah.
It's not even worth that.
Jeez, man.
It's shit.
Even if you just want to complete your collection of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games.
Nah.
I feel like there's
or does this one not even belong?
No, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
Like it's if they go back and do some technical work to it and clean up like the frame rate and stuff like that, like that's something. But I don't think that really changes anything.
Yeah, it sounds like structurally it's just not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fucked. That game is fucked.
That sucks, man.
That is a pretty definitive appraisal of that game.
Yep.
I would say that you guys just closed the book on that. That's
if maybe we just transcribe that and put that up as the review. I don't know. Like I'm starting to write the review and I'm just it's one of those things where it's like there's so many things I want to say, but like it'll go down so many different rabbit holes of like, let's talk about the menus and why they fucking matter, and like stuff that just like to explain that stuff to anyone that doesn't already know it.
It's like a review unto itself.
Yeah, where that review gets longer than it deserves to be at some point.
Right.
So that's a 1-star game.
All right.
That is a 1-star game.
Man, you heard it here. Do not buy that game. Jeez.
What a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
everyone involved deserves better.
Sure.
Tony Hawk deserves better.
Yeah, totally.
Like
And
that franchise deserves better. The fans of that franchise deserve better.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
this
feel
is-
for you guys.
yeah, like maybe this is a silly or symbolic thing to get hung up on, but it's kind of a shame that they called it what they did.
Totally.
Like
that's the sort of thing that
it's like one last parting fuck you.
Yep. Yeah. That like you wonder if like that game originally started out with that name, or if some marketing person came in and said, no, name it this, and then suddenly, oh, there's a lot of things we have to live up to now that this game was never intended to live up to.
Or if they had grander plans for kind of that lobby situation and everything.
Like it both created loftier expectations than it apparently should have had, and also like sullies the legacy of like that core name.
Yeah. Absolutely.
In a really gross way.
Yeah.
That sucks.
When I look at some of the online lobby stuff and like you see half of an idea there that you go, like, if they close the loop on this, like there's something to the idea of an always connected Tony Hawk game, but not in levels that small, not with that many load times, like it's nuts.
Maybe if they'd had another year.
No guarantees, man. Or another $1 million, or who knows? Yeah,
Sure.
Who knows?
Sure. We'll probably never know. Check back in 20 years. Somebody will write the tell-all book.
Yeah.
About Tony Hawk 5. All right. We need to step back and take a few deep breaths after that one.
I think so.
Let's go find our happy places for a few minutes, and we'll be right back.